And from the national headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital, hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. Tonight, we're going to continue our look at who owns America's media outlets and how does that ownership, think about this, how does that ownership affect the information that you receive or don't receive, which is sometimes even more important. Tonight, we're going to have a look at NPR, National Public Radio. But we're going to begin tonight with what you need to know about air travel right now in America. It is, in a word, ugly. Ugly. Flights are being canceled at alarming rates. Equipment failures are popping up on planes that perhaps shouldn't be flying, but there may be no way to replace them because, frankly, there don't seem to be enough planes to go around right now. Isn't that weird? So this summer has been exceptionally difficult because it's when more people are traveling and because airlines have lost large portions of their fleet due to Boeing 800 MAX 8 groundings. Story we've been telling you about. Look at this. There's a typical scene throughout airports this summer. Entire families having to camp out at airports, cots being put out for passengers, people sleeping everywhere, and interminable delays. It's crazy, huh? Just to look at these pictures. Just this weekend alone, American Airlines had to cancel more than 150 flights out of just one airport, by the way. That's just Dallas-Fort Worth, 150 flights. Just this weekend, Saturday into Sunday. Swoop Airlines, that's a much smaller airline, by the way, out of Canada. Some of you may not be familiar with. It says it canceled 23 flights just so far this week. And they do directly blame Boeing's grounding of the 800 MAX for its problem because they say, look, we just don't have enough planes. Southwest Airlines says it's trying to use spare airplanes to try and get by, but they too have canceled more than 115 flights, according to reports. And here's the worst of it. Here's the part that's going to really kind of make you shake your head if you're an air traveler, right? Boeing was supposed to have its planes fixed and ready to go by early September. Now they're saying, well, maybe toward the end of October, maybe? Then what? See, airlines all over the world banned Boeing aircraft from their skies last spring after two crashes, one in Indonesia. The other one, that was October, by the way. The other one was in Ethiopia. That was in March. Killed about 346 passengers, everybody on board. If Boeing planes still aren't safe, when will they be? What are they doing? And what's it doing to air travel? And the people who depend on air travel, which is just about all of us in one way or another at some point, right? That's why we're doing this story, because we think it affects you. This is the News with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it's time to do news again. I'm going to begin tonight with something a little interesting in and of itself. It's kind of a personal anecdote. On just about every other weekend, I travel to my ancestral home, Miami, to spend time with my family, right? And then on Sunday night, I usually return home. Recently, there have been a slew of issues that have caused my return flight to be canceled. This weekend, it happened again. An hour and a half before my flight was supposed to take off, I get a text from American Airlines telling me that my flight has been canceled, gone, vamoosh, right? And they say they can't get me back into D.C. here to do my work here until maybe Tuesday. Now, they're calling me Sunday night and telling me they may not be able to get me back to Washington, D.C. until Tuesday. What the hell am I supposed to do? So I ended up flying into Norfolk and then driving for about 4 hours. I got into my house about 4 a.m. and then came to work. During my drive, I started asking myself lots of questions, like, why is this happening so often? Is it just me? Maybe it's just me. Then it's really not a news story, right? Rick Sanchez's life interrupted. Who cares? Should I believe the airlines when they keep telling me, Mr. Sanchez, sorry, this is weather related? Even when there isn't even a cloud in the sky, either at the airport I'm taking off from or the one that I'm going to. So I decided to bring in an expert. Joining us now is Jamie Finch. He was the former Director of Family Affairs for the National Transportation Safety Board, and he's good enough to join us to try and at least make some sense of this situation. Let's start with all the cancellations.
Sure.
Can you explain to all the people who may be suffering through some of the things that I have experienced, and I know you told me you have people you know who've also gone through what's going on?
Well, the airlines have bought these aircraft, the 737 MAX series, which is the fastest selling aircraft that Boeing has ever produced. In the last few years, they've sold 5,000 of these aircraft. Yeah. Now, those haven't all been delivered. Those were just the ones that were on order. But they never had an aircraft to sell that quickly. So all these airlines had counted on this new fuel-efficient, ergonomically
They were depending on them.
They were depending on it, yes. And so they had put them into their fleets. And each one of them, Southwest was the biggest one. They had 34. United had 14. So forth. I mean,
American 31 or 32, I believe.
Right in there.
Yeah.
And so they've had to readjust their schedules because those planes they were either counting on those aircraft to be there for that equipment for them to use, but it's not.
You read you heard what I was reading in the reports that I did research on this morning with our staff, where some of these airlines, both American and Swoosh, are saying we can't replace airlines that we normally would be able to replace with other planes because we don't have any. I think Southwest said it's actually having to use spare planes and spare parts.
Well, there may be obviously these aircraft are going to be airworthy. They're not going to be flying something that's not.
We shouldn't be worried about.
We shouldn't be worried about that. But they are bringing out planes that may be a little bit older, that may be that we're going to be leaving the Southwest fleet but going to another airline. So I wouldn't worry about the safety of the planes, but. You're exactly right. They're having to go back to their old cars, their old vehicles, their old whatever, just like we would whenever we have a.
So I imagine then, I'm just thinking through this. So you're in a crunch, right? It's the middle of summer. Everybody's taking vacations. Right. The economy is strong. Everybody's flying. And normally, we need an extra plane. You always have an extra plane. Right. But right now, they don't have the extra plane to depend on.
Yeah, I mean, we've all had a plane that's been delayed at some point because of weather or there was a mechanical issue. And what do they announce? They're flying in another plane for us right now. And as soon as it gets here, then we'll be on our way. That doesn't happen right now.
Which is why we're getting all the cancellations.
That's exactly right. Because there's no buffer, there's no cushion whatsoever, and also because what they usually do is when there's a shortage, they would go and rent these things, lease them from either other carriers or from some of the leasing companies. And they can't even lease them.
Boy, so these are the worst of times. Let's change the conversation a little bit.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Boeing in and of itself.
Sure.
So Boeing is saying, look, we're going to have this thing figured out and fixed in a couple of months. And they said it's going to be the beginning of September. Now they're saying it's probably not till the end of October. What's going on?
Well, they keep finding problems. I mean, FAA is really being stringent with this recertification, as well they should. That's their job. They're the regulatory agency.
So is October a realistic date, you think?
I wouldn't count on it. I mean,
really?
No, not really. I mean, because you know how every time you set a deadline, you always go past it. I mean, and they've already gone it past. They've blown through it. I think this is the third time. Yeah. The first one was they said it'll be ready in June. Yeah. And then they said September, and then they said October. And so it just keeps pushing. I think that we can just kind of almost count on it being the end of the year.
What happens to Boeing, by the way? I mean, this is they got to be taking a hit here. You know the aviation industry. This makes them look kind of inept.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I don't really think their stock has taken a huge hit yet. But what I've noticed is reputationally has damaged them, and that's going to be the hardest thing for them to recover from. Because a lot of these passengers, even when these aircraft do come back into service, a lot of the passengers don't want to fly the 737 MAX. Kayak, the online travel agency.
Customer confidence.
Yes, well, they are already, they're giving the option for a customer to opt out of a certain aircraft, if they don't like a certain aircraft, and they're specifically targeting so they can allow the passenger not to have to fly the 737 MAX.
That's never good for any company or any industry. Jamie?
They say they will within 6 months, but they have to fly before 6 months before they'll do it.
You're a great guest. You're so knowledgeable. We're happy to have you here. Thanks for taking us through this.
Sure.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So you haven't heard that we're the ones covering the stories that you won't see covered anywhere else? In Venezuela, Kazakhstan. Let's go to Hong Kong. And the media reaction to that has been crickets. How about the way we cover those stories? What the hell does that mean? Wally. That's the key word in this case, uprising. Can you believe that? watching. This is the right thing for members of the media to do, to actually pick sides. Look, if you like what you see, subscribe.